Hi, parents, and welcome to Toddler Toolkit podcast. Today, we have Paige O'Dwyer here. She's an RSLP, which is a speech language pathologist, mom, and the founder of Talk First Words, a platform created to help parents of late talkers feel empowered, not overwhelmed. With experience supporting families across schools, private practice, and her own inclusive play school, Paige is passionate about turning everyday moments into powerful opportunities for connection and communication. Welcome, Paige.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you here. Now, Paige, you're a speech language pathologist, a mom, and the founder of Talk First Words. Can you take us back on your journey, how you got into the field of speech and language development? Like, how did it all begin?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew really early on that I wanted to be an SLP. My aunt is actually a speech pathologist, and I had the chance to shadow her when I was in high school. And honestly, from that moment, I just knew it was everything combined, like what I was passionate about. So I've always loved working with kids. I knew I wanted to be in education, but I didn't necessarily feel drawn to the traditional classroom teacher role. So being an SLP just felt like a perfect fit. And honestly, I have never looked back. I've never questioned it. I've always known it's just who I was meant to be. So yeah.
I love that you were so clear and knew how you wanted to help and serve parents and children. That's amazing. So, Talk First Words, how did you, like, what inspired you to start your business and approach things and helping parents and children speak that's a little bit different than traditional speech therapy?
Yeah. So it's been exciting because it's something that's relatively new. I have done speech therapy in the complete from birth to death populations. I used to work in the hospital and I thought that was my calling. And then I had my own kids and needed some more flexibility. So I went to private practice. And in private practice, we've done everything. We do a lot of schools, a lot of private clients. And I was just finding that my true love was supporting parents with early language. It is so exciting and satisfying. And I love working with parents. And I was doing that a lot in my private practice clinic. But a few things happened. First of all, I found that parents were coming in to see me and it was taking so much time of their day, really. So they come in, let's say once a week, they are pulling their child from daycare. They are driving a half an hour sometimes to get to my clinic. And it's taking up their whole morning, which is amazing because they're putting that value on the importance of language. But often it was so much of a conversation with the parent that I thought, I don't know that I even need the child here all the time. I think we could just have a conversation, and parents know their children so well that I could just help them with some things to change and tweak at home. And we even need the kid here, right? And it could save some time. And then secondary, I'm from a really small town in Manitoba where there isn't service in the town. So they either have to wait till they get to school or drive hours to get to a clinic. And then even still, the wait list can be over a year. So I was still getting reached out with friends of friends. Just, can you help? Can you do these things? Help me start. And early language intervention is so incredibly important and time sensitive. We can just so quickly change the gap with early intervention. And so I hated seeing parents wait. So with those combination of things, I thought, couldn't I do this online? Couldn't I just have a conversation with a parent for a quick half an hour even and give them some things to try? And I'm just so excited because it's working. So I have some clients right now. I just had a client conversation this morning and she's telling me that her child's talking more and these things are working and these tiny little tweaks to routine are making the child want to engage. So it's been really exciting.
Well, that's amazing. I definitely see how you saw a lot of challenges, especially where you live, where the travel is far, the investment for the parents, they're already doing so much, and you're kind of meeting them where they are, giving them the tools they need because they're not just relying on somebody else helping their child, but they can actually take a proactive role. And that exposure over time, I'm sure snowballs for them and makes a big difference. So that is really amazing. I also read that you have an inclusive play school. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so with Partners in Play, this is a program that we created under our private practice communication options. And again, it was just built out of a need. So I think what's really awesome about our team that we have at Communication Options, just we're always changing and solving problems as they come up. So as SLPs, we are always working in school districts and different school contracts. And one challenge that we have in our hearts is that we're always a consultative role. So we come in and we support teachers and teaching teams with what the child needs and we leave all the strategies and then we go away for a few weeks and we just hope they get done. The tricky thing with that is that there are so many demands on teachers and teaching teams that sometimes the day-to-day takes over and the speech and language stuff doesn't get done, which is it's nobody's fault, but it's just the demands of the day and what they all have to fit in. So we thought, what if we created our own environment that was completely led by an SLP, where speech and language development was embedded into every single thing all day long so that the children didn't even know what was happening, but they were literally getting speech therapy 4 days a week, all day at the program, not just a session, but an entire learning experience. And what we know is that our kids with significant speech and language delays, they don't need necessarily the extra stuff that preschools were offering, like the academics and the other things. They need to learn to communicate. They need to be able to share what they need and have an interaction with others. And that is the most important thing to set a foundation so that they can be academically successful. So we decided to try that out. And it was amazing. We're still doing it and our parents are asking for more. So we started with 3-year-olds. Now we have 3 and 4-year-olds because our parents didn't want to leave. And then we're finding that our kids are going into the schools and they're ready. They know how to communicate. They can express themselves. They have the tools. And really that year was built just on communication all day long, speech and language skills, and it really works. So we love that program and the families just feel like our own. And yeah, it's been really great.
How has motherhood shaped or changed the way you support families and approach your work? You shared a lot about Talk First Words and this really cool, inclusive play school that sets kids up for success. And how do you think motherhood shaped that for you?
Oh, I think it just gave me so much more compassion for how full families' lives are. I mean, just with every single thing that families are doing, whether it's just the day-to-day stuff, like getting food on the table and getting the house cleaned up, or if it's all, the sports and activities and extracurriculars. And I think those are so important. And I don't want those to be taken away in lieu of speech therapy time and those sorts of things. And even for myself, I value education so much. But even with my own kids, to set aside time to do extra schoolwork at home is just something that I say every day I'm going to do. And it doesn't always happen. And so I think that the purpose of Talk really is parent training on how do you make this just so second nature into what you're doing every day, all day without adding anything new. So the whole idea is that you're not going to add something new to your day. You're just really going to learn some easy strategies so that when you're setting the table, we're doing certain things. When you're having a bath, you're doing certain things. When you're getting in the car, you're doing certain things so that truly there's nothing new added to your day, but you're speaking to your child and helping them in things you're doing all day. So a big part of my role is just helping families identify what routines are you already doing? What things do you have to do every single day, whether you like it or not, like get dressed or eat? And then what are we going to do to build language in those times? Because it can't be anything new is what I've really learned as a parent.
Yes, not adding more to parents' plate and stacking more on that, but serving them, helping them, giving them the tools that they can access throughout their day already. And that really is what's going to truly help parents. What are some common things that parents do without realizing it that might actually slow their child's speech development down?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is that parents unintentionally overwhelm their child with too much language. So they're speaking in too long of sentences and too complex. It's kind of, if you think about it like learning a new language, you might go to a different country and somebody says something in a full sentence to you, and they add some gestures and you get the idea of what they want you to do. So you're doing it. But to actually like break down each word they're saying and know what it is and what it correlates to is not something that's easy, right? So we need to really be intentional about making sure our children understand each word we're saying and pairing it with that object and those sorts of things. So I think that's the one big thing is just that we're doing too much. And the second thing is, as adults, I think all of us have an agenda of what we want to teach our kids. And it's natural, right? We have all these things we want to share with them and enjoy with them. And even as a speech therapist, I will set up my session with the best stuff. And they might totally take a left turn and be interested in like the pom-pom that I have and not the game that I wanted to play, right? And we can't teach and get into their interests if we're not following their lead, really. There's a saying that I love that says, children who lead get the language that they need. And so they have to be interested in what they're looking at. It's kind of like when you give your child that brand new toy at Christmas and they just want the box. And we're like, no, look at the toy. And they just want the box. And so if we can actually just, let our egos go and truly tune into what is your child looking at and model that language at their level, it is huge because they care and then they're going to make those connections. And just so I think that's the biggest thing, just slowing down enough to realize what your child's interested in. What specifically are they looking at? Are they looking at a wheel or a fan or a certain page of the book? And just modeling the language that they would say if they could.
Yes, just echoing what you were saying is, and there's research that shows that in toddlerhood that they really do pick up on keywords depending on their developmental age, like 2, 3. They're going to be picking up on keywords and not necessarily comprehending the whole sentence. And I love your analogy there of being in a different country, somebody saying things, and you're like, maybe you hear like a word or two. You're like, okay, I know that means library, but I'm not picking up like 100% of the sentence. So that's a perfect analogy for that. And also the second half of what you said was like those ready to learn skills and making learning fun and engaged. So they're present, because if it's not that, it's harder to connect. It's harder for their brain to be online to absorb the information. And it's amazing how much kids can learn when they're not thinking, I need to learn this, but it's actually, I'm just having a good time.
Yes, they don't know. It's so important. And then one last thing on that piece too is something I get from parents every day is that, well, they understand me. I know they understand me, but they can't say it. They can't do it. And again, it's just that last piece of what we just talked about. You can understand something in context, right? Like you said, you hear the word library, or you know we're going to the car, those sorts of things. But can you actually know what word means what? Then you can't say it. You can't pick out the words. You can't say them. So this is something that honestly, a lot of parents say, just, I know they understand me. They're following directions. They're doing the things, but they don't have any words. So then we just need to be so intentional in what is your child's language level at? And then that is how we have to start teaching them how to communicate. We have to match their level. We can't go too high, or else they cannot copy us if we're saying 5 and 6 words together and they're not even having one word yet.
Yes, that discrepancy right there, and meeting them where they are is so important. Is there any way that we can balance giving more space to our kids when modeling speech and not being on our kids so much and overwhelming them with so much?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just taking that pressure off, honestly, one of the biggest things I think is when we take all the pressure off to make a child talk, it truly makes them talk. They don't want to be pressured into these things and have that, just really that pressure really is the best word. And I think too, I'm not asking parents to walk around and only speak in one sentence every time, but when we give the full sentence, then we back up, we take a pause, and then we start labeling things, and adding those extras in. Like if you say, put your cup in the sink, then you might say, cup, sink, in the sink. And just sort of breaking down more pieces, adding lots of gestures, adding lots of extras, and just taking more time and space and slowing down, doing less. It's all about doing less, really.
I love how you also mentioned like nonverbals as a supportive tool and gestures for learning speech and showing that and being able to identify, because there's expressive language where the child is expressing out, but there's also receptive language. Can they actually understand what you're saying if they're not able to say it? And then working on bridging that gap.
Yeah. And receptive has to come first, right? That's something I think people miss too, is even though you say your child understands the routines and the directions, usually we are doing a lot of extras to support them. So how much do they actually know when we don't help, right? And when they have to understand the words before they can use them. There's a speech pathologist in our field who's really amazing. Her name's Laura Mize. And she has a tagline that I love to use with my parents. And it says, tell them, show them, help them. And this is a great way to kind of test what your child knows first, right? So if you said, like if you're playing farm, you said, oh, give the pig to me, you could just tell them without doing anything. And if they don't do anything or they give you the cow, then we can add gestures. So this is show them. So we tell them, we show them. So you might point and say, the pig, give them to me. And you're pointing to yourself and you're adding all the extra things in. And if they still don't do it, then we might help them, right? So then we're going to actually take their hand or help them and say, oh, the pig to mommy. I'm going to give the pig to mommy, or put the pig to sleep, or whatever your direction is. But there are all these levels that children might need for support. So I just love her tagline there of tell them, then show them, then help them. And then we always want to go back between. So
that's a really great way to show parents, help them understand the concept of something we call in education called scaffolding, like I do, we do, you do, in building independence. And it's also kind of plays into prompting and pulling the level of prompting and pulling that back. But I love the phrasing and way that parents can digest and understand and use it in their everyday life. So that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Are there any other ways that parents can boost time with their children in regular routines to work on speech.
Yes, absolutely. So again, I think that what I really value in the coaching model that I help parents with is really just, I think the parents truly need to understand the language level their child's at so that they can confidently and accurately just do everything in their routines, right? So I think the power is just knowing more. So, and what I really like parents to think about is how many words is your child using? Because if they're not using any words, there are actually 11 skills that happen before words even come. So you can't just start modeling words and expect your child to. And the problem is, though, is that some kids do just learn this naturally, right? So I do have parents too that say, oh, my first child talks and it was no problem. And now what's happening? Or vice versa. So some kids do just pick up language and being in that environment. But with our kids who have more trouble learning language, it needs to be intentional. And I think that's where parents get overwhelmed because they don't know how to start. And the best way to start really is to understand your child's language level. And then what things have to come before words even happen? Can they copy you? Can they make sounds? Are they hearing you? And one of the first things parents need to probably try is that they've had a hearing test because we put all this energy and effort in. And if they're not hearing us, then that can be a huge thing to start with. So it's just, I think, giving parents that power of where's your child at and how do we build from there? But really, if your child's not talking at all, we need to build in sounds. And what are the easiest things to do? And if your listeners send me a message on Instagram too, I have some handouts that help with this too, like how to build gestures, how to do more environmental sounds. So when you're eating, just doing that, or if you drop something saying, oh, some of those things that we might not consider real words, but they truly are. And if your child's using those sounds, we model one word because how can we copy more than the level we're at, right? If your child's using one word, then you can model two words. So it's called the 1-up rule. And it just really helps parents, I think, in a real plan of I can't say 4 and 5 words and get my child to pick out the most important one. I have to meet them where they're at and knowing that there's so many levels before words even happen. So those are things that I've kind of built as freebies too. And again, so people can send me a message if they want some of those handouts because it just sort of helps organize our brains in identifying where your child's at and where to start. And then to answer your question better in the routine, once you know that information, you can do it all day. So if we're having a bath, we can just say things like on, off. But if your child has one word, you might say water on, water off. And it's just the power of knowing the level they're at.
Yeah, that's so important. And I feel that so many like miscommunication, misunderstanding for toddlers, they're not able to be understood or get their needs met is such a major source of tantrums, meltdowns for little ones, and especially 2 and 3. And I've also seen that being a twin mom, seeing how different the development can be. Like one of my twins was saying like 3 to 5 words when the other twin was saying just 1 to 2. But over time, that gap filled and, like they're just on a different level, but exactly like you said, meeting them where they are. So not everybody has such a direct comparison like that, like twins, but they might have the reference, like you said, like an older child. Oh, they picked it up easy. So what's going on with my younger child? Like, is there something wrong? And I think parents can get really worried and concerned. And it's good and comforting to know that we can work on it simply, like you said, with simple speech, simple expressions, and building the skill. And that's the other thing I like to tell my audience too, is, we need to build the skill from where they're at. Because it's like, yeah, maybe we want them here, but we really need to meet them where they are so they can build the skill and they will get there.
Absolutely. There's a really great visual of 2 ladders side by side. One has these great big steps and a child's hanging from them and they can't reach the next step. And then there's another ladder with these tiny little steps. So like maybe 10 little pegs in between one. And I just think it's such a powerful visual for parents to see, like, if you're just hanging, trying to get these great big gaps, you're going to be there for so long. But if you do all the little tiny things in between, you're going to go so fast, right? And I think it's also powerful for parents to have it broken down because as a parent, when you're living every day with your child, you're not going to necessarily see those tiny little things and what to look for. It's like, are they talking or are they not talking? So again, just more information is more power for parents to see those little steps and like, oh, I have to do these 5 or 6 things in between this happening and this happening. And then they can validate those more like, okay, he's not using words yet, but now he's copying me. He's holding my attention for longer. He is using more sounds and more expression. And so kind of having those little milestones to go between, it can also be really encouraging because change is happening, but we often don't see it, right?
How does parent coaching differ from traditional speech therapy? And why do you believe parents are such an important part of the process?
Yeah, I think coaching just flips it in that it's the parent doing the work. The focus is on the parent. So when I'm doing parent coaching, I'm not seeing the child. So it's not speech therapy in a sense that I'm not diagnosing your child, assessing your child, treating your child. I don't even see your child. So a parent coaching model is the focus is on you, the parent, and you know your child so well. You know everything they like. You know when they're going to have that breaking point when you can push them or do things. So it's truly just giving the parents all the tools and the confidence to build language into everyday strategies. And it's just about the confidence, I think, and also the plan, because we can tell parents, some things to do, but the coaching then takes them through a real plan of learning what their routines are, what they're doing. Do they have older siblings? Do they have a dog? What kind of things are they doing in their daily life? And then just helping them come up with the plan of when to put language in. Again, knowing their child's communication level and then giving them those small steps of this week, I only want you to focus on this one certain thing. And so I think it's really just the change of the parent is the speech therapist, which makes so much more sense because when you come in for traditional speech therapy and I play with your child for a half an hour, think of how many hours are in a week and I just get them for that half an hour, right? And when I do traditional speech therapy, I really do value a coaching model where I'm trying to get parents involved, but sometimes it is a bit awkward in that they just like to watch me because I'm doing the things with the child and they're responding, but the parent is mostly watching and having a conversation, but they're not the ones practicing and doing and reporting back. So the parent coaching is just that. I give them the strategy, they go try it for the week. We come back and say, what worked, what was tricky, what do we need to do more of, and how are they responding? And then we problem solve and keep going. So I do think it's the most effective model for a true late talker. The one caveat to that would be that children with, a specific speech and language impairment, like that really do need speech intervention, that is not what the parent coaching model is for. So this parent coaching model is truly for a late talker. Those who do understand their parents and they do understand and have all the other skills kind of in place, but they're just not talking yet. And those are the things that I can help parents change in a daily routine. So there are times that I've, had to tell parents too, you do need to go to your speech therapist because you need that specific one-on-one focused attention for other diagnoses and those specific things that only a speech therapist can do. But this mission is just to give parents the confidence to help their late talker. Yeah. So in a traditional model, the parent often feels most comfortable just watching me engage with their child. And I mean, they are getting lots out of that. They're watching how I'm doing things. We're setting the goals together. I'm giving them a specific plan to try at home, but it is mostly me interacting with the child. And I think where the power can come is that when a parent can go and do it at home in the comfort of their own home and just have those skills to practice, but then they have somebody come back, they're able to come back to me and tell me what went well, what felt not as great, and we can troubleshoot from there. And I think with the parent coaching model, it's just a step up from buying a course because I've had a few parents who said, I bought this course and I bought this course. And things I hear are, I didn't do it. I haven't started it. Or I kind of started it and then didn't go. And I think, we've all done the courses, right, of all the times, and you have the best intentions. But if you can't talk through the materials and really set up a plan that's individualized for yourself, it's harder. And so I actually am making a course right now, but the idea is that the course will come with the coaching. So you do a module, then we'll meet, we'll make it work in your schedule, we'll make it work with your routines, with your child, their level. And I think you need that accountability also to have those quick little weekly coaching calls so that you can get a plan in place and you actually do it. Because life is so busy and a year might go by and you haven't done the course yet and with the best intentions. And so I think just that consistency and frequency is something that the parent coaching model is able to offer.
Yes, accountability is so important and just like making sure it helps when we are held accountable to make things more of a priority. Even we might not have time, but we make time and knowing somebody's going to show up, a real person really makes a difference. And I also found with parents, we can watch something, think we understand it, but then when our own kid in our own unique situation, we might freeze up and go, I'm not exactly sure in this scenario, it's a little different. So I need some guidance. And so that's why that level of support you're offering, Paige, is so helpful. Now, for parents, what would you say to a parent that maybe feels like they're just not doing enough? maybe they're being hard on themselves, or they feel like the expectation is they should be doing more, which a lot of parents might be feeling.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents feel that way. There's so many pressures of this day and age of parenting. I would say just continue to show up for your child, right? If you're asking these questions, you're on the right track. And just being present is the most powerful thing. You don't need to know you don't need to be a speech therapist. You don't need to know every answer. But I think actually just even setting out a couple minutes a day, like it is so much, again, less than we think it needs to be. You don't need hours of playtime, but if you're doing something just with intention, and again, just having a couple of these tricks in your toolbox, so if you're already reading a book to your child at night for 3 minutes, instead of asking them 1,000 questions like, what's that? Just taking it easy, taking the pressure off, and just labeling for them without testing is honestly enough. So I guess my advice really would just be that you probably are doing these things already, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't need to be a lot of extras. And again, it's often about doing less and being super intentional about doing the little things, then adding extras in, and you'd be surprised at what you're already doing and the tiny tweak that it could be that would just have your child responding better.
That's so amazing. Do you have a favorite success story where a parent had a big breakthrough?
Yeah, you know what? This is honestly why I love this population so much, because I think that I have one couple in mind. The mom and dad came together, and this happens all the time. And I think this is why the power is in the parents. They come, we do one session together, and I give them a few things saying, stop doing these things, like these tiny little things, just stop doing them. And the big ones are, stop asking your kids so many questions. Stop telling them, say this, say please, say thank you, say this, do this. And I often get them to kind of team up against each other and say, I want you to go home and see how many questions your partner asks. Like, just sort of to try, and if they're in the right mindset of it, it can be a funny game. You'd be like, whoa, I asked like 100 questions today, right? And so I think when they come back, I've had a parent come back like 2 weeks later and say, oh my goodness, like I stopped asking questions and my child started talking. And I think those little moments of like the power of giving parents those quick, easy tips is so satisfying, because it was there all along. The child just didn't even have a chance to talk. So I do have on my website and on my, I have a freebie that says 5 things to stop doing to get your child to start talking. And I think, again, it can be powerful for parents to know they don't have to add in a ton of stuff. They actually have to just take away some things, stop doing some of the things, and then the words will flourish. So they can go and message me 5 things to stop doing, even, or freebies, and I can send that to them. But I think those are all my favorite stories, is just when parents can come together and be so excited that one thing changed so much.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Paige, what does progress really look like, especially for a 2 to 3-year-old?
I would say that progress really isn't about how many words they're using. It is about how they're engaging, how they're putting everything together to actually communicate and get their needs met. And really, every child is going to communicate differently. But I think progress really is what you mentioned earlier, getting the frustration to leave, right? When our kids are having tantrums and, melting down, it's always for a reason. They are not being heard. They're frustrated. And so for me, progress really is making parents feel better first, that they can help their child, and helping the child actually get out what they need to be able to say and communicate in some effective way what they need.
I love that. Do you have any last words of encouragement for parents that are feeling discouraged before we end our conversation? And also, where can our listeners find you if they want to connect and check out your programs?
To a parent feeling discouraged, I would just say that you're not behind. Your child is not broken. There's so much hope and easy changes that you can, as a parent, make, and you don't have to do it all at once. We're not expecting you to know all the answers. Just taking, honestly, one tiny small step and adding one thing into your already routines is so powerful. But just making that connection and following what your child was really interested in can be huge. So I do have a website, Talk First Words, and also on Instagram is where I'm sharing most of my tips and tricks. So on there, you can find those pre-words, pre-verbal skills. So before your baby has words, what has to be in place. I think this can also be great for parents who aren't worried yet, but if they have a 1-year-old and don't know all the things about speech and language development, what are the things we're looking for? So a huge one is gestures. Like, if your child is waving and nodding, and those sorts of things can actually predict how many words your child is going to use later and when words are going to come, which is so interesting that we have that information. But those are things that are early indicators that parents can get ahead of. Because what we know is that the earlier we start things, the quicker kids can catch up. And as they get older, and this is why as speech therapists, we really don't like the advice of wait and see, because every 6 months in those little ages, the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And between those years of 1 to 5, but really those 1 to 3 even of learning language, our brains are just learning so many new things every single day. And the longer we wait to catch up, the bigger the gap gets. So we always encourage starting early because it can't hurt. You're just getting skills to continue supporting your child for later. So go on Instagram at Talk First Words, and you can find me there for just the daily tips and tricks and those sorts of things. You can ask me questions there. I also am at ihelpmoms.com, which is a super cool platform that has a ton of parent coaches for everything from potty training to sleep training to now speech therapy. But you can also just ask the question or book a discovery call there if you have some one-on-one things. And then I do a coaching call every week. And I intentionally keep them short because I know parents often have their kids at home or maybe they're at work. So they're just half an hour little snippets of what's your goal this week? What are you going to try for a strategy? An opportunity to ask questions. And then I have the back end stuff that I give to parents to do on their own learning. But it's just that weekly connection that we can meet with other parents, meet with me, and just get little things going.
Community is so important. And yeah, I love all that support that you're giving there and making it like digestible, actionable for parents that are already feeling so overwhelmed. That is amazing, Paige. So follow Paige on Instagram at Talk First Words or visit her website at talkfirstwords.com. I'll have the links in the show note so you can access it easily below listening to this episode. Thank you so much, Paige. You can definitely tell you are very passionate about definitely helping our children. Being able to communicate is such a huge gift, and it's never too early, like Paige said, to start working on these skills, because even if your child is 1 or 18 months, like the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, like those times can have their challenges. And like I said earlier in the episode, so much can come. Yes, there are big emotions and there are just emotions and feelings, but also there's a lot that comes from not being able to be understood correctly, not being able to communicate, and confusion around communication. So if we can give those skills, that's really setting your child up for success.
Absolutely. And Heather, why don't we just even say if they DM me toolkit on Instagram, then I can put together all of those freebies that I've made so far, from the gestures and what milestones should be, 5 things to stop doing. I'll make a little package just for the toolkit listeners, and then I can send that out to them. And if they have any questions, I truly do just want to help every parent get their child talking. So just let me know and I'm happy to answer those things.
Yes, definitely DM Paige Toolkit and she will get all the resources for you. All right. Thank you so much, Paige. We'll see you in the next episode, parents.